All right, we're back here live on PALS TV, everyone. Next, we're going to be coming to you from Columbus, Ohio, joining Chef Phil. Last week, he helped us prepare some cottage pie. Week before that, we did some chicken. So naturally, we're going to continue and then go into seafood this week. So he gives us some of the best segments we have every week. Can't thank him enough for being on here. So live from Chef Phil's kitchen.
Welcome back, gang. As Aaron said, we're doing seafood today. This will be a fairly simple dish. It really doesn't take a lot of time. Most of what we're going to spend our time on is how to make fish correctly and how not to destroy your pan while you're doing it. I'll be using salmon today, but you can use any type of fish at all. I, in fact, intended to use cod, and then realized I had a bunch of salmon, so I just switched. Any type of fish you want, that'll be fine. So let's go ahead and get started. Our side dish is going to take the longest to do, so we're going to go ahead and start with that. I've just got these really small red skin potatoes. The yellow or white ones with the very thin skin will also work just as well. Since I'm just making for me, I've got about 5 of them. It's probably too many, but it'll work. So grab your knife. And all we're going to do with these is chop them into fork-sized bits. Most of them that are about this big, that big compared to my hand, I'm just going to quarter. So just 2 cuts. If it's got a long way, go that one first. You have to be very careful doing that first cut. But then once you do that, you get the flat end. Make sure you put the flat one on the cutting board so it doesn't roll around and you don't cut your fingers off. Fingers well away from the knife. Give it another whack. And now I've got 4 small wedges into the bowl. Simple whack, put them on the side. Yeah. Easy. These 2 are a little bigger. See it up against my hand, it takes much more of my palm. So instead, we're going to go into 6. Again, we do one, split it in half and set it down, but instead of going in a simple one here, we'll just put them together. Use your claw to keep your fingers away. About a third of the way in once, and a third away from the other end a second time. And these are about the same size wedges as we had with the smaller ones with fewer cuts. And then one last one. Everything we're making today is fairly spicy. If you don't like it that way, don't make this dish. We've used our knife, we've got potato starch and fluid all over it. Got to clean our knife. Just a quick rinse and a wipe. And set it down, blade away from you. So you got a bowl full of potatoes. Grab a hot sauce that you enjoy. I'm going with sriracha. The fermentation works really well. And just squirt as much as you want in there. If you just want a tiny little bit for flavor, then just a couple of drops. I'm putting quite a lot in. You'll want a very small amount of oil on this. You don't need the oil for any kind of flavor or anything, but we're going to put these into the oven so that oil will help them crisp on the outside. So for this, just a splash, about half a teaspoon. Let it swing. I also have some dried pepper. You can use chili powder. And as Aaron said right before we started, there goes the phone. Let me make sure it's not anybody. I'm not sure. I'm not involved. Right, so dried pepper flakes. You can use the crushed up ones that you see that look like this. The people often throw on pizza. This is the Turkish variety that I quite like. Just a quick dash, a tiny little pinch if you don't want a whole lot of spice, or throw a bunch in. No idea where I put the cat. All right, on to that. Because they are potatoes, throw in a pinch of salt. If you are using a commercial hot sauce like sriracha, like Tabasco, things like that, you do not need much salt at all. They have enough salt in them already. Just give it a swirl, a bit of a toss, and then we cover all of these in our hot sauce. Standard baking dish. I put it with foil and then put a wire rack on it. That'll help keep my baking dish clean and make it easier for me to clean up. Other than that, it really serves no purpose. Once you get these on, make sure they're in a layer and they're not sitting on top of each other. You want everybody to get heat on all sides. And I've set the oven to broil on high. And we'll just toss them in for 10 to 20 minutes. Look at about 10, depends on your oven. I touched the hot sauce. It is very important to wash your hands, soap and water after that, because you will inevitably touch your face like we're not supposed to be doing. But you'll do it, and then you will burn. Get soap on your hands. The second thing we're going to start to prepare is the topping for our fish. We're going to do apples and peppers. Everything will just go into a bowl. It makes a lot of noise. I'm going with the Granny Smith apple because I like that tartness. Any apple you want. A lot of the things we're picking today aren't for flavor or as much as they are for color. So find a nice flat spot on your apple. With a Granny Smith, it's almost always the top. Most apples, it's the top. Split it down once in half. Then we've got excellent flat spots. Quarter both sides. And then you see all the stuff you don't want. The seeds, the stem, all the bits in the middle. So if we set that down on an angle, again, claw with your hand, keep your thumb well up, and bring your knife in on that same angle that it sits on, and just slide down. That all comes off, and we're going to our compost pile. Now we got an odd wedge. The odd wedge is nice and flat, so we can set it right down. And then you want about 1/2 inch strips. 1/2 inch to 1 inch. So however many that takes for the size of your apple. And then about half that size in the other direction. Then you throw them in your bowl. There, we got that. This one looks like it's going to take 4. You want to line your stuff up and push so everything comes out about the same size. It is less important because this isn't cooked much, most of it. But having everything the same size does make it easier to eat as well. I think I will do one more of these. Make sure we have enough. By the way, the apple just slipped under my hand while I was putting the knife through. If you noticed that, you would also notice that the first thing I did, instead of trying to control the apple and finish the cut, is I just pulled it away. If I throw the apple on the floor, that's fine. If I slice through my hand, that is not fine. So if anything ever starts to go wrong, keep yourself safe, let the food go to waste. Like, you can buy more food, you cannot buy more hands. Those, and then we put them into the dice. I find a chef's knife is handy because you can chop, you can slice, you can do pretty much any cut you want with it. However, depending on what you're doing, I could have just chopped these apples, just smack it down. But I find it a lot easier to slide through. That gives me better control, less likely that I'm going to chop my hand off. All right, so about 3/4 of an apple. I'll move this one aside. These scraps will go in the compost. I need to check out whatever popped up in the chat. Forgot to bring them. Oh, I didn't cut myself. I'm okay. Because I pulled my hand out of the way. That's the important thing to do. Again, we've got all the juices and acid from the apple on the knife, so we got to clean it. Along with the apple, we are going to get a bit of fresh cilantro. You'll see this in a lot of cuisines. Cilantro is big because it's got a bright, peppery flavor. It tastes a lot like black pepper, really. I've cut the stems off. With cilantro, you can eat these stems. They're fine. You can cook with them. You can do whatever. I'm not in this, but I will save them over on the side in case I want to do something with them or something else. If you get stem in there because you missed it, that's fine. I got a bunch of these leaves, and I'm just going to roll them up into a small cigar. And this I will chop. Just a rough chop. Some of them will be in long strips. Some of them will just be bits. But we just toss them in. Because of the... normally I would use a lot more cilantro than this. But because of the other flavors we have that are going to give a pepperiness, I am not going to worry about that. Again, cleaner knife. And we're going to grab a little more green. We've got the green onions. They've been sitting around for a while. So I'm going to grab all of them together and cut the tips off where they've started to dry. They're perfectly fine. but they don't taste quite as well, and they feel weird. So for green onions, you can do them one at a time, or bundle them up, make sure they're all about the same height at the top, then grab your claw and just slide across the slice. I'm going with circles rather than on that diagonal bias cut that we've done before. I want these a little smaller. And because I am mostly going for color, I'm going to stop when we turn away from the green and become mostly white. And then these are all perfectly good and I can use them for many things. So I set them over here next to the apple that I'm saving. These also go into our bowl. And I'm going to give a quick check on our potatoes. And they're doing all right. Use our knife, clean our knife. Yes, cilantro is delicious, Lauren. All right, that's another clean knife. And we are also going to pick a pepper. We are not picking a peck of pickled peppers, just a couple of peppers. With most peppers, I would still use the chef's knife, but again, because I like spice, I'm going with habaneros. They're very small, so to make sure that I've got the most control and I don't cut myself with this great big knife, I'm going to use a smaller knife. In this case, I'm going with a 2-inch paring knife. Again, lay it away from me when I set it down. You've got two choices when you're working with peppers. Either you can put on gloves, which I will be doing today, or you can spend a whole lot of time every time you touch a pepper, you wash your hands with a lot of soap and hot water. The oil, capsaicin, in peppers sticks on your hands forever. And it really hurts when you accidentally touch something and you haven't got it all off. All right. The habanero, very small pepper. We got the stem, and we got the other end. All we're going to do is cut right about there, get the stem off. We'll do all three of these at once. Into the compost pile. Also nice when you're cooking particularly hotter peppers that if you put them in the compost pile, it keeps things away. Little critters that want to come in. So what we're going to do is split this open. I'm going to make a slice through the top of it and just through the top so I can unfold it. Cut down, slice all the way through, and at the end, I'm going to go all the way to the cutting board, but not through most of it. And then we just roll it out, and we've got all the seeds and these membranes in there. If you are making a stew or something you're going to cook for a long time, you can leave the membranes in. These are mostly uncooked, and they will be tough. If you don't like your peppers very hot, you definitely want to take out the seeds. I've got two and we can see better. The way to do this, no, you can't see those seeds. Let me get this one, I'll get a bigger one. Put that on the side. And I just slice down through the end. I've got this big chunk of seed right here. I just put my knife into the membrane at the bottom of it and try not to cut into the flesh and just slide the knife up. And normally I would just slide straight through, but I'd drop it this way, so I'm turning to the side. And then the seed and the membrane all fall out together. You can leave the seeds in if you like it spicy, and you can leave the membrane in. Otherwise, that stuff's got to come out. If you are cooking it for a long time, leave the membrane. It's fine. Won't hurt you. But, as we are not in this case, we are going to take it out. Otherwise, it's too chewy. It's just not fun to eat. Sometimes the membranes don't come. So if you put your knife flat like this and just scrape along it, you'll get them out. Easy. Move all your seeds out of the way. So now we've got this flat piece right here, and we're just going to set that down and cut strips. If you have a larger pepper, after you cut the strips, you want to gather those, turn them, and cut them into very small pieces. But the habanero is such a short pepper, I'm not even going to bother with it. There are many reasons to go with an habanero. It's quite a hot pepper, which is most of the reason I do it. Well, that's not true. Used to be. But now, I like the habanero because it's got a lot of flavor besides the heat. There's a big fruitiness to it. Not really a sweetness, but almost. And we're going to put these nice orange colored habaneros in there. I almost got some little red jalapenos to put in there. I thought that'd be excessive. But I did like the idea of the color. As they always say, you eat with your eyes first. So the color is important. All right. I just did peppers on this. Normally, I would immediately wash my cutting board to get all the capsaicin oil off. However, I'm not cutting anything else. So I'm just going to clean off and leave it until I'm done. But I am going to wash my knife immediately because you always wash your knife immediately. I found that cat. We wash our knife and we keep it safe in our blade guard, put it back in our bag. I'm still wearing my gloves because I'm still going to mess with these peppers a bit. I'm just going to stir up the cilantro, the peppers, the apples. Very quick stir. And I'm going to take one glove off so I can touch other things. And I want about half a cup of extra virgin olive oil. And this is not a thing I normally use when cooking. It's something you should have raw, but this is going to be raw mostly. Where's my cup? You don't need a ton of this. Otherwise, you're going to have a soup rather than just a quick top. About half a cup, we dump it in there. A little bit of salt to bring out the apples. And a touch of black pepper to help out the cilantro. And then I've still got this gloved hand. I just get in there and mix it all together. So now we've got a goldy orangey green topping. And now my glove comes off. I'm going to bring my pan up to about medium, just a little below it. If I'm on a 10-point scale, about 4.5. Got 2 small pieces of salmon. I just bought them in the ready pack, so I didn't have to slice a whole half of salmon. The big problem with when we're cooking fish is they always stick to the pan, and then you're chiseling the things off. There's several things you need to do to make that not happen. The first thing, and this is true about just about all food, but for different reasons, there's a lot of water on these. So you just get a paper towel, or generally I use a different towel, a real towel for meats and stuff, but not for fish, because I don't want it sitting around in the laundry all day. So this is nice and dry now. One that will help it when it's cooking not to stick. More importantly, for all food, you want dry meats, dry flesh, going into your pan so that they get that nice browning and it sears. If there's water on there, it just steams and cooks that way. I will take a little bit of salt onto that. I'll get the other one right now. And then I will lay it in my pan, which has oil in it already. I might need to bring that up. And for salmon, skin side down first. And they both go in. I've been touching raw fish. I'm going to wash my hands. With soap. One of the really handy things for fish, so you can keep it from sticking, is instead of using a spatula, you use a fish turner. Metal throughout, almost always, and some kind of vinyl or plastic on the edge. What makes the fish turner different than a regular spatula, you probably can't do it. There's your standard metal spatula. It's pretty thin, but it's nowhere near as thin. Yeah, you can't tell the difference on that. This is knife blade thin. So it'll go under everything really well. And it's got some flex on it so that it doesn't just rip through anything. Kind of work it under. You can see it moves around a fair bit. You want it nice and whippy. But the biggest thing to keep your fish from sticking is to leave it alone. As it cooks there, all the proteins in whatever meat, this is true of everything, but fish is the one everybody has a problem with. All of the proteins start to gel and caramelize, and they glue themselves to that pan. Now, as they continue to cook, they will get that nice brown crust, what we call the Maillard reaction. And once we get that crust, then those are solid, and it'll pull itself away from the pan. It only takes a couple of minutes with a small piece of fish like this. Generally a couple of minutes with anything. The way to check is just to grab a corner with your turner and lift. If it sticks, then don't pull it up yet. If it comes away pretty easy, then you can go ahead and do it. You may have little bits that stick. That's fine. The other thing is use a nice clean pan. Okay, I'm going to leave those just a second more, and we're going to go ahead and grab our potatoes out. They should be well done. All right. These are not burnt. They're quite black. That is just the pepper and the oil on. Well, not the oil so much. That's the pepper crisping up. And we go there, and I'll get a plate. And the regular spatula for these. They should look pretty much the same all the way around. Black and red is what you're looking for. You want essentially a blackened thing. And these are too many potatoes for one serving. They almost entirely fill the plate. I'm going to go ahead and put them all on the plate. Well, we did not get through. Because I just want to make room right here. And then I will put my plate aside. And move this aside. Remember, keep using your towels. Don't burn your hands. You can also use oven mitts, that's fine. These should be done. Yep. Fish turner slides right through. We flip it over. Slide right through. Well, I have a bit of an edge. There we go. Flip it over. For cod and whitefish, really you're just heating it enough to work. So you don't kill yourself with raw fish. Raw fish is fine, and sashimi and things like that, but the stuff you get out of the freezer, that's not okay. Don't eat that raw. With salmon, trout, things like that still have skin with them, what we're really looking for on that first one is a nice crisp skin. As that browns, we should be very crisp. And we do not need long on the second side at all. For salmon. Everything else, it'll take a little less time on the second side. You still want to get some browning and stuff, but you got to cook that through and make sure. Salmon, however, you eat fairly rare normally. It's grainy and dry when you don't, and doesn't taste as nice. So we only need a minute or so, but it's the same process. Once it releases easy, then it's good. Those are still sticking a bit, so I'm not going to mess with them yet. Let's see if I can pull any of this off. If you've made salmon before, I can't get any. If you've made salmon before, you'll know when you cook it, little bits of white come out. It kind of looks like fat. That's not fat, it's the protein coming out. To avoid that, there are two tricks. The first, and maybe the most difficult trick, is just to cook at a lower temperature for longer. You do an easier cook, and it doesn't squeeze together as hard. As we cook meat, fish, flesh, it's nice and loose, and then it heats up and pulls, all the muscles pull on each other. That squeezes that protein out. That's what that white stuff is. Clearly, I'm not cooking really quickly or very slowly, so that's not going to work for me with this dish. The other thing you can do is brine your fish. You just take very salty water, so it tastes just like the ocean. You can put some other flavors in it, but they almost certainly won't matter. Water does not carry spice well. Maybe a little black pepper. Just lots of salt, and you leave it in there at least an hour. If you do it overnight, it'll be great. Again, just like normal, you pat it dry, and all that extra water will soak into the muscle fibers so that when they start to squeeze together, there's water that slows down that squeezing, and then what does get squeezed out is the steam from as that water heats. And your protein stays in there, and you don't get the white stuff all over. All right. Of course, these are about to go. No, I don't really have room on this plate for both of these. So I'll just go with one. Flake your fish. Kill your heat. Let's set your other fish someplace. In my case, right there. If you're using cast iron or carbon steel, you need to wipe that pan out. Don't let any of this stuff dry in there. You want a thick wad, your paper towel, so you don't burn yourself. That can hurt quite a bit. If you are using a non-stick skillet or just something sitting around that you've got, then you do not need to wipe this out. But you still got stuff in the pan that you need to get out, and if you leave it in there, you know it's a pain in the butt to clean because you got to scrape it everything. You do not need to do that. What you should instead do is take a little bit of water, more than we've got oil in there. Let me say about a quarter cup of water. And while the pan is still hot, you throw that water in there. Gently pour so it doesn't splash. Once that starts to simmer and you get some bubbles in there, then you take a good spatula, wooden spatula, or if you've got a fish turner, that'll work. It's nice and sharp, but it doesn't have metal on it, so you won't screw up your pan. And just slide it across every surface of the pan. And that water will help pull up anything you've burned into your pan. So that's how you would do the non-stick. I understand most people don't have carbon steel pans these days. So now we have our topping. Normally I would just reach in here, but I just used up all my gloves and they're in the other room. And I'm not going to grab these raw peppers with my bare hands and then poke myself in the eye later because I'm scratching my face and burn. I'm going to use a spoon. This one is a slotted spoon because all this olive oil in here is just to carry the flavors that we've got in. We don't want a bunch of it on there and have an oily, fatty fish. Stir it up again, make sure everything's in there. Get a good, healthy scoop with everything in there. You want your apples, your cilantro, your peppers, all in there. When you spoon and serve anything onto a plate, put the bowl or other serving dish you've got on top of your plate, so when your spoon moves, you don't drag, in this case, oil or soup or whatever, all over your countertop, your table, your tablecloth. Put it right on there so it hits right onto your plate instead of everything else. They're not going to go in the right place ever, but try. And being a little chaotic and all over the place is fine. Makes it look like you didn't get it from a restaurant. No, you might get it from a restaurant, but you didn't get it from a pre-packaged meal. People know you did this if there's one onion way out in the middle of nowhere. There are way too many potatoes here and it looks wrong, so I'm going to pull these over. All right, arrange them so it looks kind of pretty. When I did that, the oil went everywhere. A little black, little orangey, little red. That's what we want on the potatoes. And then we've got this bright looking color. That gives us a nice balance of different colors. I'm going to wipe since I just touched the potatoes, and that's weird. Your potatoes, not quite a baked potato fluffiness on the inside, but towards that. You don't want a mealy potato that's real thick and heavy in something small like this. You want a nice crispy outside. You should get some crunch. I could use a little more crunch. There's some crunch. Oh, that's a lot of spice that comes through on the end. I got that one right. I'll pull that off. Whether you eat the skin of the salmon or not is up to you. I quite like it. That's why I spent all that time making it nice and crispy. If you don't want that, take your fork into the salmon straight down and then pull it, usually towards you so you don't throw it on other people. And that'll just pull the flesh of the salmon right off the skin, and you can just eat that part. I want the whole thing. So I just do the normal cut. There, get a bit of salmon, and I want some pepper and cilantro and an apple in there, so I get the entire taste all at once. Oh, I forgot the chives. They're in there too. I mean, I didn't forget them. They're in there. Very nice cilantro. Put some on there. So you always your first bite, you want to get as much as you can of everything, so you know what the dish tastes like. And then you can mess around and say, "Oh, I'm tasting the apples now, and they're not a good apple that I like, so I'm not going to use that one again." The first time, get it all. Really well done too. Generally with the salmon, I use a creamier sauce. So this kind of oil-based thin thing was very different for me, but works out well. That's a very springtimey dish. It's got a floral type of feel to it. So good for now. Caitlin, I hope you're happy we did fish. Next week, we're going to do vegetarian, and I can see that Gila certainly has a question. So, over to.
Hi, how are you?
I'm excellent, Gila.
So I'll ask you. You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a plan on how open. When are you gonna close? When are you open?
We are going to open just as soon as it's safe, and we're not going to make anybody sick coming here. As soon as we can, but not until it's safe.
Okay, so I don't know if Jackie will text you or the meeting for Ashley.
Oh, I'm talking to everybody. I
Okay,
just talked
Jackie.
yesterday about it all.
The question never gets old, Gila. All right. We have a couple other ones real quick. So, George?
Does Art Outside the Lines also tie into this too whenever it opens, whenever it gets safe?
Yeah, that is the rule for all of us. We're not opening anything until it's safe for everybody to come in.
Yeah. Caitlin?
Thank you for the fish, Phil.
No problem, Caitlin.
Well, education and food, the perfect combination. We can't thank Chef Phil enough for coming on here and giving us this great segment each week. Like he said, next week, I think he's going to dive into some vegetarian. So looking forward to it. Thank you, Phil. We appreciate it. Okay, now taking a short break again and finishing our day with some games and some fun. So come back and join us in 15 minutes. See everyone soon.